Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Grajdek. I'm Dr. Martha Grajdek. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. You may have heard the term decision paralysis. This is something that can happen at an individual level in our personal lives, but also at work. And whether we're dealing with decision paralysis in our personal lives or at work, it can be equally detrimental to the outcome and overall experience. Decision paralysis tends to happen when there are too many choices or too many options. That could even mean too many voices or too many opinions being added to the mix. And as the name implies, or as the term implies, decision paralysis then leads to indecision. When we talk about decision paralysis at work, it can happen at an individual level where a person is simply overwhelmed by too many options and is unable to reach a decision, but it can also happen at a group level where there may be too many voices, too many options, too many opinions. Sometimes that could also mean conflicting options or conflicting opinions. All of that can add up to decision paralysis, an outcome where a decision is not made. It's not difficult to understand why decision paralysis could be detrimental, especially when it comes to the workplace. What are some of the more common things that contribute to decision paralysis? As I already mentioned, too many options, too many opinions, the fear of conflict, or simply the desire to avoid conflict, the fear of making the wrong decision, but also things such as the fear of regret. What if we make the wrong decision? And sometimes a simple lack of direction can be the deciding factor when it comes to the inability to make a decision. Whether we're talking individual decision paralysis or decision paralysis within a group, overthinking can also be a big culprit. Sometimes the best of intentions of covering all the angles, all the options, all the possibilities can really derail a group's ability or an individual's ability to come to a decision. Decision paralysis comes at a price. Not only does it result in no decision, it can also do things such as increase stress, lower morale, cause the group or the individual to lose momentum and potentially miss opportunities. When attempting to avoid decision paralysis, there are certain things that absolutely must be put in place to help with proper decision making. Things such as decisions frameworks, facilitation strategies, and even the right leadership. So what could that all entail? Well, first and foremost, it may be necessary to limit the number of options or the number of opinions. That's not to say that in a group setting we should prevent some team members from having an input, but rather it may be prudent to limit every team member to one or two things in terms of input. Setting time limits may be critical to being able to reach a decision. When there is a deadline, when there is a specific time limit set upon this decision-making event, that in itself can contribute to an actual decision being made within that limited time. Focusing on the company's mission and values can be tremendously helpful. because those can be used as a guide for what the right decision will be. This can be especially helpful when there are too many options and too many opinions. Using the organization's mission and values as a guidance can help to narrow down the options and therefore allow the team to reach a conclusion and make a decision. And of course, the ability to accept imperfection can be critical for many decision-making events in many organizations. Although that's not one that will apply to every organization and every situation, there are organizations, there are industries, there are decisions in which making a mistake should be avoided as much as possible. But in general terms, for most people and most organizations, accepting imperfection as being part of life can help to make a big difference when we're tackling decision paralysis. Although each individual employee definitely has a part to play in a solution for decision paralysis, it is up to the organization and its leadership to set the kind of decision-making standards and expectations that will facilitate better and more effective decision-making. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. Decision paralysis can be detrimental to anyone's experience, whether we're talking about decisions made in personal lives or decisions at an organization. And of course, decision paralysis can occur at an individual level, but also in group settings. This is why it's so important to recognize and address decision paralysis before it becomes detrimental. Decision paralysis can often occur because of too many choices or the fear of conflict. But when decision frameworks are put in place, decision paralysis can be greatly reduced or even eliminated. Limiting options and setting time limits can be helpful to decision making. And while each individual plays a role in effective decision making and in effective avoidance of decision paralysis, it is up to the organization and its leadership to set the standard, allowing for better, more efficient decision-making experiences at all levels. As the week unfolds, I encourage you to assess your own decision-making and whether or not decision paralysis is part of your experience, whether that's at an individual level or at a group level within your team at work. How can you improve your decision making or your team's decision making? Remember to consider what you learned in this episode and apply it to your own situation in such a way that it will benefit your decision making not only at an individual level but also at a team level. For those of you who experience this podcast in an audio-only version, I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel, Stress Free with Dr. G, where you can find the video version of this podcast. While there, check out some of the other videos. They focus on stress management. Stress Free with Dr. G is found on YouTube, and the link for that is in the description below. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.